Welcome, fellow denizens of the dark. This is Lance, your host of Strange Bites, where we sink our teeth into wonderfully weird and wild science discoveries. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app, leave a quick review, and follow us on social media. Your support truly makes a difference. Now let's dive into today's bite. You are standing in the blistering heat of the Saqqara necropolis south of Cairo, where the sands have guarded their secrets for thousands of years. Then, in 2016, archaeologists start digging near the pyramid of Unas, and they uncover something no one has ever found intact before: an actual ancient Egyptian mummification workshop. Not just tombs of mummies, but the place where the magic happened, complete with stone beds for preparing bodies, tools, and dozens upon dozens of ceramic jars and bowls. Many of those vessels still bore clear hieroglyphic and hieratic labels: to put on his head, to wash, to make his odor pleasant, dry antiu, Sefet. For the first time, we could peek behind the curtain of one of humanity's most enduring quests: the fight against decay itself. For episode 38, we descend into the sands of Saqqara for the story of the labeled embalming jars, the groundbreaking science that decoded their contents, and the very latest 2026 findings that show just how personalized and sophisticated these ancient recipes truly were. The story begins with a team led by late Egyptian archaeologist Ramadan Hussein, working with the University of Tübingen's Saqqara Sayyite Tombs project. In 2016, they were excavating a deep shaft complex near the Unas pyramid when they hit something extraordinary: a subterranean embalming facility, what the ancient Egyptians called a wabet, connected to purification areas and burial shafts. This wasn't a cache of leftovers thrown into a hole. This was a working space, evidence of burning, drips of resin on floors, stone embalming beds, basins, and scattered throughout, over 120 ceramic vessels, many still bearing their original labels in ink or incised text. These weren't generic storage jars, they were precision tools of specialized trade. Embalmers, part priest, part chemist, part artisans, used them to mix and apply specific substances at specific stages of the 70-day mummification process. The labels gave instructions on what went where and how it was used. One beaker was explicitly to be put on his head. Others referenced treatments for bandages or specific organs. Some even named the workshop administrator. What made this find revolutionary? For centuries, our knowledge of mummification came from tomb paintings or papyri, like the ritual of embalming, and chemical traces on the mummies themselves. We had guesses: natron for drying, resins for preservation, myrrh and frankincense for scent and sanctity. But we lacked the workshop content, the actual recipes in use, matched to their label purposes at the exact moment they were mixed and applied. Saqqara gave us that missing link. The vessels dated to the 26th dynasty, 664 to 525 BCE, the late period, when mummification was at its most elaborate and commercialized. Egypt was a crossroads of trade, and the embalmers were global shoppers. But what exactly was inside those labeled jars? Fast forward to February 1st, 2023. A landmark paper drops in the journal Nature. Biomolecular analysis enabled new insights into ancient Egyptian embalming, led by Maxime Razou and colleagues including the late Ramadan Hussein, Suzanne Beck, Stephen Buckley, and Philip Stockhammer. They didn't just look at the labels, they analyzed the residues still clinging to the inner walls of 31 carefully selected vessels, 9 beakers and 22 red bowls with the clearest inscriptions, plus a few from associated burial chambers. They identified the chemical signatures using gas chromatography mass spectrometry, essentially a high-tech nose and fingerprint reader for molecules. The results were stunning and, in places, corrective. Take the famous term antiu. For generations, scholars translated it as myrrh or a related incense resin. The The labeled jars told a different story. Vessels marked antiu, sometimes dry antiu, contained a deliberate manufactured mixture, cedar oil or tar, juniper or cypress byproducts, and animal fat, not raw myrrh at all. Antiu was a compounded product, a sophisticated unguent crafted by the embalmers themselves. Similarly, Sefet, long thought to be one of the 7 sacred oils used in rituals like the opening of the mouth, turned out to be a scented, fat-based unguent often mixed with plant additives like juniper, cypress, or illumi resin. Its exact recipe could vary. The analysis revealed clear specialization by body part and purpose. Head treatments had multiple labeled vessels, complex blends featuring illumi resin from trees in Southeast Asia or African rainforests, pistachia resin, mastic or terebinth Mediterranean, juniper, cypress, and cedar oils, animal fats, beeswax, and even castor oil in some cases. The head received the most elaborate care, 3 distinct concoctions in some analyses. Bandage and wrapping treatments, mixtures rich in conifer products and fats, sometimes heated, chemical markers of processing. Other labels pointed to washing, odor control, skin softening, or even specific organ treatments, linked to Coptic jar deities like Emuseti or Duamutif. Many ingredients were imported. Conifers from Levant, Lebanon's famous cedars, pistachia from the Mediterranean, illumi and possibly damar resins from much further afield via long trade routes that had been active since the 2nd millennium BCE. Bitumen from the Dead Sea appeared in some burial chamber samples. This wasn't just ritual, it was an industry powered by globalization. The demand for exotic preservatives and aromatics helped drive Mediterranean and even Indo-Mediterranean trade networks. The embalmers weren't guessing, they were skilled proto-chemists who understood antimicrobial properties, binding agents, and how different mixtures behaved on the skin, bandages, or organs. They heated some resins, combined fats as bases, and tailored blends. The workshop even showed signs of being a commercial operation, serving clients of varying means. But the story doesn't end in 2023. Science keeps peeling back layers, literally. In June 2026, a Spanish team published groundbreaking work in the Journal of Archaeological Science, analyzing bombs directly from 7 ancient Egyptian mummy heads, preserved in Madrid's Reverte Coma Museum, acquired in the 19th and 20th centuries. Using a powerful combination of infrared spectroscopy, mass spectrometry, and pyrolysis gas chromatography, they examined 27 non-invasive samples. Their findings beautifully completed the Saqqara workshop data. They confirmed tremendous variability. Recipes differed not just by era or social status of the deceased, but by specific body zone, hair versus mandible jaw versus occipital bone, and even by depth of application within the same bandage layers. Inner layers close to the skin often had higher resin and beeswax content for direct tissue protection. Outer layers had more polysaccharides and proteins, perhaps for different protective or cosmetic functions. Pine resin dominated across samples for its antimicrobial and insect-repelling qualities. Beeswax acted as a binder. Animal fats, vegetable oils, and natron, the classic drying agent, were staples. 1/3 intermediate period samples showed castor oil. The team noted clear adaptation, different mixtures for different individuals and purposes, echoing the workshop's head-specific versus general treatments. Social status, sex, age, chronology, and possibly geographic origin influenced the formulas. This 2026 study showed the Saqqara labeled jars weren't anomalies. They represent a living, adaptive tradition. The embalmers weren't following a single rigid recipe for eternity. They were artists and scientists customizing preservation like master perfumers or pharmacists, responding to the unique need of each body and the cultural expectations of their time. So what does this mean for us here in the 21st century? The ancient Egyptians stared into the depths of decay and said, "Not yet." They developed a 70-day chemical and ritual technology that could preserve soft tissue for millennia. a testament to observation, experimentation, and the courage to treat death as a problem to be solved, rather than an inevitability to accept. Their labeled jars revealed a society where knowledge was specialized, trade was global, and the boundary between science and sacred ritual was fluid. But there's a deeper strangeness here. Every advance in preservation, whether natron and elemi in 16 BCE, or modern cryopreservation, plastination, or digital mind uploading, reflects the same human hunger to cheat entropy, to carry something of ourselves forward. The Saqqara embalmers mixed important resins in underground chambers to give their dead a chance at eternity. We sequence genomes, freeze bodies in liquid nitrogen, or train AIs on our memory with the same underlying hope. Yet the jars also whisper a humbling truth. Even their most sophisticated mixtures equally yield to time. The residues we analyze today are ghosts of recipes that once smelled of cedar forest and tropical resins. The mummies endure not because the chemistry was perfect, but because the culture invested enormous resources in the idea of continuity. What secrets of transformation and preservation might we still uncover? What would an ancient embalmer think of our attempts to digitize consciousness or engineer biological immortality? As we push the boundaries of what it means to last, are we honoring the dead or simply refusing to let go? The sands of Saqqara have given us labeled jars that speak across 2,500 years. They tell us the ancients were far more chemically sophisticated and far more human than we often imagine. Their quest for eternity wasn't naive superstition. It was applied science wrapped in profound philosophy, the belief that the body could be a vessel for something eternal, and that careful craft could bridge the gap between this world and the next. So the next time you think about legacy, memory, or what we leave behind, remember the labeled jars of Saqqara. The recipes for forever were written on humble pottery, decoded by modern chemistry, and they still have lessons for anyone who wonders how much of ourselves we can truly preserve. Thanks for joining me on this strange bite into the past. If this episode gave you chills or made you rethink what eternal really means, hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app, give me a follow on social media, and share it with someone who needs a dose of ancient wonder. Until next time, stay strange and question everything.